But actually, mimicry, as you've shown in both your books, is a good example of some highly intelligent behavior. Can you talk a little bit more about mimicry in birds?
Yes. I mean, for one thing, it involves vocal learning. So it involves listening, memorizing, imitating, practicing, trying to perfect the match. And, learning and remembering sounds that belong to another species. That's especially demanding. It really requires a brain that's flexible enough to acquire a new sound that's not part of the species' normal repertoire. So that in itself is a feat. And then how birds use mimicry is just so interesting to me. For instance, the Fork-tailed Drongo is a species from southern Africa, and it uses its ability to mimic to deceive other animals, and it is really brilliant at it. So it can mimic the alarm calls of like 45 different animals, and not just birds, but mammals like jackals and mongooses. And what it does is that if a particular animal, like a mongoose, has a hold of a really juicy piece of something, the fork-tailed drongo will mimic the alarm call of that particular animal, startling it into dropping its own food, and then and it flees, and then the drongo just swoops in and takes that hard-earned bit of food. So really brilliant kind of deceptive behavior in that bird, and there are many examples of it.
I mean, there's one example from the book because actually one of the things that I found interesting in the bird way is that it's not just kind of showing intelligence in this really positive light. There are some examples of some fairly sinister, what we might understand as sinister behaviors among birds, and a lot of those are to do with mimicry. The one that stands out for me is the little hermit hummingbird, which it reminded me of the film, The Talented Mr. Ripley. Do you remember that? That movie? They do a Talented Mr. Ripley. They study the calls of better, more successful alpha males. They study them, they go away, they mimic them, they practice them, they come back, they attempt to kill the alpha male, and then replace the alpha male, but not as a new bird, as the male. They do the perfect imitation, and it is basically the Talented Mr. Ripley of birds. I mean, it's kind of amazing behavior.
It is, and there's that's a brilliant example. There's another one that kind of floored me, which is the superb lyrebird. And the male superb lyrebird, when it has a female on the mound and it's mating, the male will mimic the alarm calls that small birds make in response to a ground predator, and that makes the female freeze. So she's frozen on his mound so that he can keep mating for a longer period of time and therefore probably be more successful. But talk about manipulative behavior.